one of the things that I like to just play around with a little bit is looking at year over year trends uh, on sale moments. And I think Prime Day is really not a great one for obvious reasons. When we're looking at D2C data, it's actually about sales on Amazon more than it is about D2C, but it is still kind of fun to see like year over year comps for things. So um, the like for example, actually the reason I started digging into this is I saw somebody post something about how Amazon was down 41%, but it was Shopify's biggest day ever, and I was like, well, that's highly unlikely. And so I went in and looked, and it was not. It's nowhere close to like a Black Friday or a Cyber Monday sort of sales. And in fact, Prime Day, from what I'm seeing, is actually lower than like last week's 4th of July sales, which I think also makes sense. Like people are going literally to Amazon.com to buy as opposed to purchasing on site. So, but I still think it's interesting. What I thought was really interesting is that with the elongated 4-day period, instead of it being two, the year over year sales were not very there was not much of an increase for day one and day two. So I think it was like plus 12% year over year for day one, plus 6% year over year for day two. Why this is meaningful, in my opinion, is that, year over year, the cohort we're looking at for the month of June was up like 30%. And so if it's only plus 6% day one, plus 12% day two, we're actually up plus 18% day over day from last year. But the point is, like, Prime Day sales and whatever impact that's having on D2C sites is lower than I would expect. I would expect that to be, 30% plus year over year. Maybe not on a same day basis because it's 4 days now instead of two. But regardless, then like for day three now, yesterday, there were no Prime Day sales in 2024 on that day. And so we're only up 18%. I would expect that to be higher. So I just think it's interesting that there's not a whole lot of not a whole lot of activity. And I think just in general, we're seeing, going back to our conversation last week, I guess Rishabh, that was you and I that were on with Taylor and some other folks, but we're just generally seeing like a softer year. So that's, I think, the lesson here in the story.
You're saying you're seeing a softer year across the board on like e-commerce, including Amazon, or you're saying that Amazon Prime Day is a really good leading indicator for other data that you're seeing?
I think it's a good leading indicator. The fact that Amazon Prime doesn't look good year over year, and also D2C sales don't look good year over year, I think is meaningful. So, I mean, it's still up, right? It's still positive, but the trend that we're kind of that I think is like a pretty clear trend at this point is like it's not that growth in e-commerce doesn't exist. It's that it's slower now than it used to be. We're not seeing, well, we're probably never going to, I shouldn't say never, but unlikely to ever see like 2021 numbers again. But in 2020, but yeah, regardless, like the growth trend is slower.
Yeah. Well, you want to know what makes me extremely nervous? I wonder how much of that is pull forwards or saving quarters. And so, in fact, even the slight increase is really bad when you comp it to year-on-year trends of the days before and the days after. So, like, if you were to do area under curve over a longer period of time, then you end up with actually depression because people, like, basically, if I'm a retailer or I'm a brand, and I'm really hoping the answer to this is like, no, that's not what happened. So like, I want to be clear that I'm hoping the answer is no. But I wonder if you look at the sales data for the 2 weeks leading up to it, did Prime Day at least make up for it? Because if the answer is no, then that's a really bad sign. Because what it means is that people did a lot of like work to try to get sales and it didn't lift enough. Yeah. Now I wish I didn't ask the question.
I was wondering if there was a really simple answer to this, like rates up, spending down, but rates are down year on year. So I guess it's a little bit more complicated.
I mean, there's also like a time delay on these types of things too, right? Like it's not like everything that every lever that's pulled actually has like an immediate impact on the economy. So there is like a time delay to things too. So and like consumer sentiment and all that plays into effect. Like it's interesting to see stock market has been doing really well over the last couple of quarters. Well, last quarter at least. But then it's not necessarily being translated to consumer spending.
I mean, I'll say one like, completely useless anecdotal thing, which like I'm an avid consumer, and I used to like really, really get excited for Prime Day. And for whatever reason, this year when I got the email, I was like I used to think when Prime Day came around, I was like, what do I need to buy? And like, I don't know, again, this is completely anecdotal, but this year when I got the email, I don't know if it's that they're doing Prime Day too often, because like, what do they do it like fucking 3 times a year now or something. So it's not even Prime Day. And so that's a weird confusion thing. Like, I don't know. Like, I think maybe they've just like juiced Prime Day for all that. And like also the deals on Prime Day used to be really, really good. Like going to the Explore page, I would easily find 10 things that after seeing them, I thought I needed them. Versus, I think the last Prime Day, I was like struggling to spend money. I was like, I want to get shit. And whatever the stuff that's being displayed to me, I either don't need it or like the discount wasn't at a rate in which made it so like as impulsive as it once was. But like that's just like me shopping. Like I don't know, whatever. But
Man, I had the same exact experience. The last couple of times there was a Prime Day, I went looking for deals and I didn't find anything interesting. I haven't even been to the site. Like,
yeah,
this is day 4 of Prime Day, and I have not visited Amazon.com yet, or logged into. I guess I don't even have the app, but if I did, I have not logged into the app or anything. So, like, I've literally not looked at a single Amazon Prime deal, and I don't think I will. So, anyway.
Oh, I was just gonna say I've literally been to the Amazon site a bunch and completely ignored the Prime Day sales because because like we're hosting my kid's birthday tomorrow. And so I've been on during the sale, and I've ignored it entirely.
So you're buying the things you actually want/need, and are not even looking at the deals that are there.
like I almost think like this is complete speculation, but in a way, like I think Amazon as a brand might have like matured in a way in which I purely look at it as like a utility and not as much as like a shopping experience. You know, like I know when I go to Amazon Prime, I'm going to get something quick and I'm very confident in their shipping times, but I'm not really looking at them as like a product discovery type sort of thing as I maybe once did, or I don't know, but I do have like a different feeling. Like I think my personal spending on Amazon feels like is different than what it used to be. You know, I would almost like go there looking for solutions to my problems, whereas like now I almost like know what I want and I check if it's on Amazon because like I know it will be a better buying experience.
That's actually interesting. Okay, do you think AI has been part of that shift for you, or
I don't think I bought any physical products from AI. I bought a SaaS today from AI. But physical product, no. I mean, I think most of my physical product spending comes from Instagram ads, almost exclusively. And like the only other one is like I go on this random blog called Uncrate, which is just like the most random stuff that guys would want. And like the price ranges range from like $13 to like $480,000. But they're just like, this is a cool thing. I would say that's, yeah. For me, it's like Instagram ads and Uncrate.
Wow. I do. I worry that what that means actually is that they just didn't spend as much advertising it this year. And I worry that that's actually even worse because they thought to themselves, it's not even worth it. Let's just do the thing. Let's just see what happens. But like investing the capital, the consumer is not spending enough for it to be worth it for us to like spend a bunch of capital like advertising the event. Because like usually you like the reason you are like thinking about it ahead of it, just like everything in life, is because you see a bunch of ads leading up to it. Like, I mean, like this is like the world thankfully is like simple in this way. Like, you know, ads lead to awareness and therefore you think about it. And now that I think about it, I like cannot think of any Prime Day ads that I saw.
Same. Yeah. The only reason I even knew when it was because I'm in this space and people were posting about it on X. That's literally the only reason I had it. I would have known that it was Prime Day.
wonder how many consumers are thinking about it similar to how Zach's thinking about it. Like, I go here to solve a problem. Amazon is a utility for me. I'm not sure about you guys, but separate from Kindle, I don't think Amazon is innovating that much, right? It's like a coffee machine. How frequently do you buy a coffee machine? You probably already solved that problem for yourself. All right, on to the next problem. And maybe Amazon have done an incredible job of creating abundance in solving the common problems, and brands are doing a really good job of consolidating a spend for luxuries.
Oh my God, dude, that's the most bullish take I've heard in my life. I love that. I'm a sucker for optimism. That's such a good take.
But if you think about like when we were talking to Sean, right? He's seeing growth, but the whole conversation was about how Shopify is struggling, right? So not Shopify, but Shopify stores, right?
I think Sean is like an exception. Like it's so hard for me to believe that what Sean is experiencing, like other people are, and I think he said that, right? Or do you feel like I misheard him?
No, I couldn't agree more. You know, I think it's getting tighter and tighter. The brands that are succeeding are getting a lion's share of consumer spend.
I mean, I think this is one thing I wanted to actually mention last week on the podcast with Sean, because he was talking about tariffs and all that kind of stuff. But I think what's happening, and I think this happens with like any mature industry, is that when an industry matures, like your barrier to entry is like so much higher. But like once you get over that barrier, it's almost like you're just like swimming in a pool of money. The barrier this year was tariffs. There's a bunch of people that probably like panicked and all that kind of stuff. There's a bunch of people that waited for it to subside, and they just like absorbed their new net margin, or they restructured their team. We have one customer who I had a call with, and we were trying to get on a call for like months. And he was like in the weeds. And then we finally got on a call, and he's like, dude, sorry, like, you know, the last 4 months, we've completely rebuilt our entire business because of the tariff issue. And on the other side of them rebuilding their entire business because of the tariff issue, like they're growing like wildfire. And it's everything from like where they're sourcing products to like their intro offer, their hero offer. And like one specific thing, this is like maybe like an interesting tidbit for like anybody running e-commerce. The most impactful thing for them in unlocking growth in like the new era was not looking at average order value, but looking at median order value. And so a lot of their like CAC calculations up until that day was always based around average order value. The issue that they found was that they were acquiring a ton of customers in which were a net loss because they were looking at average order value and not median order value. They instantly changed their offer so that their CAC would be aligned with their median order value. And like now they're back and they have like better payment terms with the supplier, better like all this type of stuff. And so it's like, I think the lion sort of like operator that's able to like weather this like shift, I do think there's like a lot of abundance on the other side of it, but I think we're going to see a lot of like kittens kind of like get slaughtered.
How long do you think it lasts?
Like,
by the way, this is like materially impacting. I can't believe I'm like live broadcasting how I'm going to think about operating my company for the next 6 months, but how you answer this is going to do that. But which is like here you're seeing the operation happen. How long do you think that's going to last?
How long do you think what's going to last? This new era of that business specifically?
The shift, because the answer to that question should determine what you're willing to spend on acquiring what types of customers.
Well, I think,
right? As a SaaS company?
No, sorry, this isn't a SaaS company. This is a D2C brand.
No, I know that, but we are SaaS. We acquire D2C brands as our customer, right? And so if you think that this is going to happen for a while in a particular type of segment, it should impact how much you're willing to spend on acquiring customers in that segment, right? If you think that they're going to get washed out.
I think our business models are a little bit different. And so I don't think it would be as impactful for like our customer base because we're so heavily on the agency side rather than direct brand. And I don't think any brand looks at our pricing right now as like a cost center or like an optimization. If I'm being honest, like the subset of customers in which I'm talking about getting wiped out, which is like the ones in which are not able to adapt in like a ever-changing environment, I don't think that those customers would have been high LTV customers anyway, just based around like the people that I'm talking to. Like the winners win for a very long time. And I don't think that like this is an interesting idea, but like I think that the market doesn't determine whether you win or not. It just determines how long you win for. Like in any market, there's like an opportunity for a bunch of idiots, and like they can win for a certain period of time. But like the lasting companies are the ones that like they survive irregardless of markets. And like I think that those are just like they're winners. And like when these other companies get wiped out, that doesn't. I don't necessarily think that. Like I think that creates a bit of a vacuum as well of opportunity for like the next phase.
Well, that is one thing that's interesting when you talk about like ads, for example. It's price is very much tied to inventory and demand. And so like if you did end up in a world where everybody's pulling back ad spend, it has some impact on like Rishabh, what you're doing, obviously. But then eventually there's a realignment of that, and somebody's going to be able to come in and take advantage of that, which can still be a customer for you in that context. And then you can still make more money off of the winners, even though there are losers in that context.
Yeah, like
unless you have flat rate pricing like me.
Like in this case, like I'm definitely not betting against meta ads long term in terms of like, let's just call it like a public investment, right? So
yeah, I in fact, if anything, I would say like in my portfolio, like I'm ridiculously long meta.
So yeah, I think it's like a new phase of company. In the same way that like the first Shopify apps, like some of them became unicorns and some of them kind of fizzled out. And then there was like this new sort of like resurgence of Shopify apps, which like a lot of them are raising VC funding. Now they're like really well-built teams and they're like SaaS companies. They're not widget companies. Like I think that could happen with e-commerce where it's just like, you're not just kind of like fly by night selling shit online. It's like, no, we have to build companies. This is just distribution. Like Shopify is not a business model, you know, like e-commerce is, which is just like getting products to people on the internet.
Rishabh, you asked how long you think this keeps going. And I think competition just keeps climbing and slaughtering the mediocre. And like Zach said, there's space for, everyone who finds a bit of arbitrage for some amount of time, but the great brands survive. I think we saw something similar to this on social. I had my brand back when content was distributed on social chronologically. So we just posted a lot to get a lot of real estate on timelines. But as soon as content distribution moved from chronological to merit-based, a huge amount of competition came into play, right? And you had to make great content. So brands started advertising to generate demand. They found arbitrage there because you could get a huge amount of distribution and it was fairly uncompetitive. But then ads got competitive. And the dorky static from your lame competitor doesn't win because you have competitors, great businesses that know how to operate. So I think that it just continues to squeeze out the mediocre, right? Those people who aren't providing supply for emerging market demands.
Yeah, one thing that's really interesting, I know we like to talk pricing, so Rishabh, on for me, like by doing flat rate pricing, I am essentially setting an artificial ceiling on the ability on my company's revenue potential, right? But in doing so, I'm also tackling like a really interesting angle and a really compelling angle that merchants buy into. So what I'm saying is I believe that there's a big enough market that will buy into what I am selling here in a way that I actually will be good with the results of that, and I will feel good about that ceiling being in place. And I think it's what I'm essentially saying is that I think companies, to be successful, need to have some sort of something that they stand for, some sort of viewpoint. And if you can really sell that thing, then there's always opportunity for you. It may not be that your opportunity is to be the biggest company, or it may not be that your opportunity is to become a unicorn in this context, or whatever that looks like. Especially in consumer, it's very different, right? But I do think that's really important. It's like one thing on this I think is really interesting is Southwest recently changed their business model to be just like everybody else, and that makes no sense to me because like I don't. The only reason I would fly Southwest in the past was the fact that I have kids, and so you get the free bags and you get the ability to board early with open seats. And I was like, okay, because we're a family with young kids, we choose to fly Southwest. And it was like, not that this is like the right I understand why Southwest maybe doesn't actually want that behavior long term. But it was like a reason why I would consider flying Southwest. And even by myself, I would consider flying Southwest because then I could earn points to then use for my family travel later, right? It was a very strong viewpoint. It was easy to buy into, and it was differentiated in a way that I understood. Now I look at Southwest, I'm like, I have zero understanding of how this is any different than anything else. And so my incentive to fly Southwest is much lower than it was 6 months ago when they had a different business model. And so I do think like that's a really important piece of any sort of business. And so even the more competition there is, the more important I think it is to have like a very strong viewpoint on something that people can buy into and understand.
I mean, one small hack, Jeremiah, is that you just need one doctor note to always board first. So,
oh yeah, is that the?
I'll just throw that out. And then always keep your priority baggage tags.
All right, cool.
Oh my God. Okay. The thing I was going to say about flat pricing, Jeremiah, that I don't think you have encountered because of the actual number associated with the flat price, but I was talking to I cannot name the company or the person, but I was talking to someone yesterday who they serve this market a lot, and then they serve other sort of similar markets, and they sell as a flat price, but it's a high flat price. And it's a one product company, okay? And they're introducing a second product, right? What is happening is that flat price is now a ceiling, and it is a negotiable flat price. Okay, so like let's just take like simple numbers. So these are not the actual numbers, but I'm obfuscating intentionally. But let's just say it's $1,000 a month. Okay. The problem with a flat price in this context is that that's actually the ceiling price now. And so now when renewals are happening, or like even like when something like the tariff hits, the first thing that happens is people pick up the phone and they say, I can't do one. This other company is offering it for $300 a month. Where can you land? And then they'll say, okay, 500. And when they try to introduce a second product, and Jason Lemkin talks about this a lot. I don't know if you guys listen to his stuff. I wonder if he would be willing to come on at some point. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, we should try to get him on. Because he also invested in Gorgeous, so he might actually be interested in talking e-com SaaS in specific. But anyway, one of his things that he talks about a lot, which over the past year, is that when companies introduce new products, the biggest issue that can often happen, which this company I'm talking about is like starting to see, I think, is you end up having to use that just to save the deal, as opposed to it being an upsell lever. And so now the like entire SaaS business model doesn't work anymore because SaaS works on NRR. And so flat price means you have no NRR, which means the business model is like fundamentally different.
Yeah, how do you treat net dollar retention then, Jeremiah?
Yeah, it's interesting because for no, I mean we're 5 years in. In that context, it's plans with feature gating, so it's a little bit different than just like a single flat price.
Okay, so you don't. So this is the thing though. So you're not actually flat price. You're feature gated.
Well,
which is what Zach is.
So yeah. So there's feature gating on no. Stamped, the new stamp that we're working on is going to be flat price. However, there will be additional things that you can upgrade into essentially. So yeah, it is not like 100% flat price, but it is your price doesn't change sort of approach. So like on the no side, we've never raised somebody's price, just like clicked a button and made everybody's price go up by 10%. The way that you pay us more is by opting into a higher tier plan. And that's been the entire approach. And it actually has worked. I've got a bunch of brands who start on we don't offer a free version anymore, but back in the day offered a free version. There's, some of the biggest brands in the space started on the free version. And as they grew, they've grown into where they pay us, $500 to $1,000 a month. And it's a gradual sort of thing. It starts with, 0, then 50, then 100, then 300. And you just kind of keep going up like that. So in that context, that has worked well because we can add new things and increase the price. But I do agree with you. Like if you have to have something additional. And I do understand what you're saying too, in terms of like, sometimes that does have to be a lever. The new thing is a lever just to retain. that is true. Like we literally just yesterday increased the feature set in one of our plans because like we just weren't able to get people to opt into the higher tier plan with that feature essentially. So we took a feature that was on our top 2 tiers and added it to the next tier down. So yeah, it's like, is that you were essentially just like constantly adding more for the same price. That's ultimately what ends up happening in that context.
Yeah, which is the right outcome of competition, right? Like I'm ultimately like no matter what, I'm a lover of competition and a lover of free markets, right? So like this is like good because it's creating a lot of surplus, right? And like we should have to like earn all the surplus that we are creating. Like I would never oppose that. I'm simply suggesting that a lot of the assumptions that one makes going into a type of business, like this one that I'm talking about, like the entire assumption set is wrong. And if you're not clear-eyed about your assumption set, about the physics of your business, you could end up in a really tough spot. Like a really tough spot. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Like basically, I mean, there's this other question, and I'm curious how you guys think about this question. It's also somewhat related. If someone comes to you and says like, "We're not going to renew," I mean, at your price points, it's like not maybe this doesn't actually happen, but like if they say like, "Hey, like we're not going to renew," do you offer a lower price in order to save the gross logo, or is it better to save the ACV and just allow them to leave?
We do
And then they can decide to come back later.
we do that like through self-serve cancellation. It's very rare that we'll offer a lower price forever, but we'll offer a lower price for a time-based horizon.
And we also try to take feedback as well so that we can actually put what they're missing into the product.
Oh, that's good. So you don't actually take the hit on long-term ACV because it's time-bound.
Yeah,
Yeah, same for us. Like for we had people come to us with tariff complaints and say, "Hey, I'm struggling with tariffs right now," and we'd say, "Cool, we'll give you a discount for the next 90 days while we kind of figure out how things are going." But we don't charge enough to, I don't know. It's like if you're not willing to pay $300 a month for like the full set of our features, or $500 if you're on like our enterprise plan, which is literally like what that looks like. And then there's some variation for like logo count and stuff, or like number of domains, or rather. Like if you're not willing to pay that, it's just kind of like, okay, like I don't know, like we can only go so low and actually service you well in that context, right? And so that's kind of the approach that we've taken. So yeah, like we might give you a temporary discount, but it's not going to be permanent.
One product that made it very easy for us to do this is actually a product called Turnkey. Like that's what we use for all of our cancellation flows, and it's like a really fucking good product for like anyone running SaaS. It just like links up with Stripe. You can like build out, essentially think about building like an email flow or something like that. And like you can like split test different offers at like different segments, ask for feedback at different segments. I mean, we didn't even have a cancel button for like 2 years.
Yeah. Hey, if we need a sponsor, maybe we should talk to these guys, since we don't have any sponsors over here.
Or they'll just give us Turnkey for free for all of us. But
Yeah.
honestly, it's really good. Yeah, it's honestly like a really good product. And they just actually added, I actually read an email from them today, because like there's all these like stupid laws now in the US about like one-click cancellation and stuff. And so you can like choose.
It just got abolished.
But there's still state by state individual ones. So like they do have a button as well that's like, just make me compliant. Here's my dream flow.
That's nice.
But like if you want to be 100% compliant in like every state, every jurisdiction, all that kind of stuff, they have a button for it, which is like super, like building that yourself. Like that's an example of like a thing where he's like, I don't want my engineering team building this. Like that's like silly. But yeah, it's a really good product.
I love how we're watching Rishabh in real time message his team. Check out Chunky.
Yeah. How did you know?
Wait, wait a second. Use my affiliate code. Use my affiliate.
Oh
code.
yeah. Drop it in the chat. Oh wait, I'm actually curious.
I was like, of all of the episodes to live stream, we're like literally watching me operate the. I mean, I feel kind of silly actually. What's your affiliate code?
I don't know. Whatever. I can't.
All right. Zach 20. Hey, Turnkey. Send Zach his affiliate commish. I put in Zach 20.
I'm actually curious though. Do you have hard numbers in terms of what that looked like percentage of revenue retained or something like that?
I can bring it up right now.
Okay. Because I always see this stuff and I never trust that it's true. So
Yeah, I mean the published numbers are never what they actually will be.
It'd be incredible if they were.
yeah.
Okay, so total customers saved was roughly 553 in the last 6 months. If I look at the sort of like waterfall, so total retained, which means they either paused their account for up to 3 months, they accepted a discount, they were redirected somewhere else like a support flow, or they abandoned completely, was 25% of total churn starts. Potentially a reduction of churn by 25% from
Okay.
people who started.
But that's not saving 25% of your revenue in that context. It's probably
in this context, the best discount we offer is 50% off for 3 months.
And then a pause for 3 months. So you could have
Pause for 3 months is a very specific segment.
okay.
Based on subscription length, like how long they've been with us. Most people won't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're essentially in that context, if you're saving somebody, you're retaining 15-ish% of that revenue probably. Or sorry, by
Assuming that that doesn't rebill after 3 months. Like it goes back to the normal price after 3 months.
Yep. That's true. It's only a 3-month discount. Yeah. So anyway, that's actually pretty good.
That's really good. Honestly, it's really good, especially if you're getting the feedback in the meet. Because what's happening is they're telling you why they're willing to give you another shot.
Yeah.
Like that's the like positive like upward cycle, right? Otherwise, what happens is like Anyway, I don't want to over rotate on the yesterday's convo, but like yesterday's convo felt to me like what was happening is like the size of the market was shrinking in front of this person's eyes. That's like a really bad outcome. I hope this person doesn't watch this. They probably will. But and then I'll get a text. That's okay.
It's fine. I have no idea who you're talking about,
just,
so it's all good.
Okay. All right, person. I have sufficiently made it clear that it's impossible to tell who you are. But yeah, the way it was happening for this particular person is like it was just shrinking in front of their eyes because like for you guys, you're being told like, hey, what can you do to like make me successful again, which is not the same thing. And so that's why I'm like so attracted to this mechanism. Yeah,
I think what we're talking about when we're talking about price ceilings and discounts is opportunity cost. That trade-off at acquisition, getting new customers and retaining them. I think from our customer's perspective, an e-commerce brand that's transacting with tens, maybe hundreds, but probably tens of different SaaS products, a thinking customer wants to understand the benefits and the costs. And I think Matthew from the Operators podcast has talked about this a fair bit. Like, what does it do? What's it going to cost me? What's the offer? And if I don't get it, do I have to invest hours of my time trying to understand what it is that you guys do and how much it's going to cost me? I think what's incredible about Stamped is that as a consumer, I know that I'm getting a comprehensive solution to a real problem in my business. The benefit is not just that the problem is solved. The cost is simple. I'm not getting lost in understanding the costs. And, if I think about the opportunity cost, could I go with 4 different providers, sacrifice simplicity, pray that they're all compatible and just as comprehensive as Stamped, and lose time trying to hack this solution together? Yeah, I think that that's an incredible solution for our customer. But I also think that there's something in the having exposure to Northside. I went into a Harley-Davidson store the other day, and I used to live in Bali, and they had this Deus Ex Machina custom motorcycle store. And it was mostly for apparel, but they had some custom motorbikes that they could sell. And in this Harley-Davidson store, they had nothing. It was a beautiful vintage Harley-Davidson store that had just been turned into a clothing store. If they just offered one custom Harley bike, they would have Northside, but they didn't, right?
Wait, sorry. Can we talk about why you're going to Harley-Davidson stores? I'm like so distracted right now.
That's a good point.
First, you've post all these like thirst traps on your socials, and then now you're talking about Harley Davidson. Like, I don't even know what's happening anymore.
Jack's gonna go ride around shirtless on a Harley. That's his new plan.
I'm on a family holiday, a very wholesome family holiday. I'm currently in Louisiana, actually, New Orleans. Yeah.
What does that have to do with a Harley? Like, I don't go with my kids to a Harley store.
Oh, my little brother.
Do you, Jeremiah?
My little brother wanted to buy a shirt, and that's all he could buy there,
Oh, okay.
right? Like in the case that he was in the market for an actual Harley, he couldn't buy one, right? And this was a converted. It used to be a Harley-Davidson store that was, vintage and beautiful, and they sold bikes, right? People could buy a bike. If they had one custom Harley motorbike in there, they could sell that potentially, but they only had clothing, right?
Yeah, that's
I
interesting.
could go very deep on my issues with Harley-Davidson as a brand, because I think it's actually one of these brands that, like, I love motorcycles. Like, this is my favorite thing in the entire world. And I think that Harley-Davidson is like a lost brand that like 100% could be like flourishing right now as like an American, like, amazing company. And they're losing to like a bunch of really, really great British companies. Like, the company I think like specifically does this like very, very well, which is like lifestyle and like vehicle, is like Triumph, which is a British company, and like they crush it. But yeah, Harley Davidson's like, I don't know who's like at the helm of like leading that company, but for something that has so much brand recognition and customer love, I think they're absolutely dropping the ball.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I spent a lot of time thinking about brands that are doing this to themselves. I think Levi's is another example. They didn't, but they basically invented jeans, and they're just so diluted now. It's like H&M, but for jeans. Jaguar, the car company. It's sad seeing these beautiful brands that mean something just stop meaning anything.
And do you think it's because of this idea of like they don't have a strong enough viewpoint anymore? There's not like they're not speaking to their core customer base the right way, or they're just not loud enough, or what do you think the issue is?
Well, Jaguar was by far did not speak to the customer base right. Like, there's probably about 100 million Twitter threads on that, and like the car sale, I don't know if you guys saw the recent numbers, but it's like something crazy. Like, it seems like a meme. Like, it doesn't even seem.
I think it was 500. Yeah,
yeah.
I think
like it was
sold
like
less than 500 cars.
It was insane. For like Harley Davidson, I can't speak to it, but I just think that they don't have the right like brand recognition at like the helm of that company. Like, I'm a patriotic non-American who really wants to buy a Harley Davidson, but they don't build the bikes that like the next generation of like riders want to buy. In contrast, like Triumph 100% like builds the next bike that like everybody wants to buy. And I just think it really is like almost like a creative director positioning leadership thing that's like missing. I have this idea of like, me and my one really, really good friend, we both have this like idea that nostalgia, it's Steven, who was on the podcast, is that nostalgia is probably like the strongest feeling. And it's probably the most like, it's probably the feeling that you can like, not the most impulsive buys, but like the most radical or excessive buys, I think, come from feelings of nostalgia. And so we had this idea like a couple of years ago, and we still want to do it like whenever, if we both exit or something, is to like start a private equity firm where all we do is buy nostalgic brands, and then try to like resurge them. And the one we really, really wanted to buy was Heelys. Because we're like, Heelys were the coolest thing, and they're honestly utilitarian. Someone bought Heelys like I think it was 2019 for like $3 million, which like I got a quote for foreplay.com for $3 million. And like, to buy the amount of brand equity that exists in Heelys and the amount of nostalgia, the amount of like all of my friends who are having kids now and like would 100% buy their kids Heelys, I was like, wow, this is the steal of the century. But I really want to start like a PE firm where like the only investment thesis is nostalgia on like a specific market segment, which would be like late 20s to early 40s, in like where the nostalgia hits the most, and like try to like rebuild some of these brands.
That's so good.
Can I comment? And I want to ask a question about PE to Jeremiah before I forget. I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect that the reason nostalgia works so well in the luxury segment is like the older you get, the more willing you are to buy time and everything in nostalgia territory feels like you're buying time. And so like you're exactly addressing like people as they have higher income, they're on average older and therefore, or higher wealth on average older and therefore more willing to buy time through nostalgic goods, basically.
I also just think it's like so deeply, like some of those things are so deeply rooted in like your sense of self too. So it's just like there's a
Yeah.
one of my wife and I have a good friend who've been friends with since college. The first new car she bought was a Mazda because of the Mazda ads she saw as a kid. And there was something about them that just like really spoke to her. And so that was, 10, 15 years later, whatever that was when she bought that car. And it was because of that experience. Like she could actually recall that nostalgic thing in her mind, and that made her want to buy a Mazda. So yeah, it is interesting to see how that plays out.
Jeremiah, can I ask you a quick question? So I don't know why this thought occurred to me where it's like there's going to be a bunch of SaaS companies next year that are some like call it in the 50 to 80 million dollar run rate range. Or sorry, 20 to 80 million dollar run rate range. That are not growing, where a big part of their revenue is actually services. Because like they never like they started the company, you have to do a lot of service in the beginning of a lot of different types, especially sales direct SaaS companies, versus PLG ones. And so like why aren't there PE funds that are just going in and ripping those and replacing it with AI and AI agents? And like why isn't Tiny one of those companies?
I don't know why they're not. I also agree that that's a good idea. So I can't answer that. Maybe it's just like that model isn't proven yet. I do think there is something that happens with PE where you're kind of like looking for like I haven't seen anybody do that yet. I feel very confident like as soon as one PE firm did that and it was successful, you probably see a ton of others do it. I actually
Isn't that where the alpha is like when nobody else is doing
I agree.
it?
I feel like Andrew Wilkinson, who's founder of Tiny and stuff. I haven't actually, based on what I know of his engagement with AI, I feel like he's probably thinking about that. So there's also just like the reality is a lot of, I think when it comes to services or just in general, when it comes to a company of that size, it is expensive to acquire a company like that. And it depending on how long you've been running a business like that and your profits and all that kind of stuff, you're going to want a pretty good exit on that. And then there's the question of like, is it actually worth it? Or could you just maybe build those things with AI from scratch? I don't know. I haven't actually like looked at a deal like that, so I have no idea. But
Dude, I think that the likelihood that you can buy it mostly with debt, cash flow meaningfully by switching workflows from service-based to agent-based. So then you service the debt with the cash flow change, and then you turn the company around and increase equity. I mean, like literally like a standard LBO. Okay. Like I think that except instead of betting only on operational changes, you bet on operational and AI. I just don't see why you wouldn't. Like I don't see why someone cannot raise money to do that. Basically, like what am I missing?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like PE funds are thinking about that. I haven't seen it executed yet, but it's got to be something that people are thinking about.
Zach, would you do that, or do you love nostalgia too much?
Well, like my dream would be Foreplay is my last software company, and then I can just go and like fiddle around with brands like Heelys, Slush Puppies, and Harley-Davidson. That would be like a very good future for me personally. I when I think about PE, like I don't think I'd ever want to buy like a software company PE. That doesn't tickle me at all. Like, but like the idea that I could own Heelys, I just think is like the craziest flex ever. Yeah. No, like I mean I have a list of these companies like in my notes folder and of like, and I think you could do it like so well.
I understand what Zach's saying though, like the software versus like a the software play would be all about optimization in that context, whereas like the play for buying a consumer brand, it's more of an emotional thing, like more something you can actually connect with. You can get excited about potentially growing all of that, whereas like the software is just really like, how do we optimize this thing
Also,
too?
like 30 years, or my 30-year high school reunion, I don't want to own Panda Doc. Like, I want to own fucking Harley-Davidson or Heelys, or like, that just would be so fucking cool.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know, a brand I think knocked it out of the park, Crocs. Crocs seem like they were going
Crocs
the wrong
it
direction.
is an example of like execution, like in like rebranding something with a ton of nostalgia. It's like literally the ugliest shoes in the entire world, and for some reason people like them. And then Yeezy copies them with like an even uglier version. Like that is like the power of nostalgia. Like that existing as an example should completely. I'm gonna send this podcast to just like a bunch of people, and like I'm gonna raise the $500 million to do this.
Yeah,
Dude, what happened to what's the old camera company that nobody
Kodak.
Kodak. There you go. Yeah.
Here's
Kodak.
this. I've been on this train for a while. One of my e-commerce brands, the first e-commerce brand I started was a company called Capture Cam, and the whole idea was that it was disposable cameras but with like custom designs. And like now a bunch of like brands are doing it, and I was way too green to make it work. But like it did kind of work at the beginning. Like I do think like the thesis of nostalgia as being like the primary like selling point or like leverage point. I mean, yeah, like I'd bet like a lot of money on it, like for consumer.
yeah.
I don't think anyone wants nostalgic software.
I don't know, man. Windows ME could come back.
Is
All right, guys, this was super fun.
Thanks, guys.
All right, talk to you guys later.
For catching up with you guys.